All right, guys, we're live again. Brian and Megan, are you feeling the swagger? Are you feeling it today?
Yeah, absolutely. I got a meeting canceled to be here. I'm definitely ready to fuck shit up, just like Fish in 97.
Come on, just give us a speech. Just let's get it over with, for Christ's sakes.
All right, we're gonna get into it. We're at tour number two right now. We are at number 2, ranked.
Hold on.
Two.
We can't get into this right yet. She needs a speech to accept her win. And
No, there's no.
She
No, you know what? Here,
Oh, we're talking about
being
this.
gracious.
No,
I'm
here.
being gracious
Oh,
here.
Actually,
okay.
you know what?
Oh,
Give-
how about
give her
a
a chance.
thanks. Wow.
Megan, how about
God.
Megan, how about
Well,
a
I'm the one who
voicemail?
can accept losses here. I'm a Democrat to the heart. I accept that I
right?
lost.
Let's get the kudos via voicemail. How's that?
All right. Is this a voicemail saying how you should have won? Because I
Nope.
still need evidence of that.
It's kudos. It's kudos. Ready?
I'm ready, I think.
Oh, my fellow HF Pod fish fans. My name's Brian. I'm a huge fan of you guys. You guys are great. And I just want to pose one question for you. Who's the nerdier of the fish fan? Those who create a draft for the longest jam, or those who listen to the people who created the draft for the longest jam, best jam? I would say the latter. Anyway, love you guys. Keep it up. Bye.
Oh my
See?
God, that is so
I
awesome.
told you we do kudos. Kudos to Brian.
Yes,
Kudos.
Brian.
Kudos accepted. Yes.
For creating the draft. So nerdy.
Actually, you know what, Brian? Maybe this specific draft was actually my idea, but the draft in general was your
Mhm.
idea. So Brian and
think
I
that's right.
basically, I think we'll accept all these kudos from everyone, and we'll move on. Great.
So RJ, so you created a draft. I'm sorry, both of you created a thing that you both created that I won. That's so fucking cool. Wow.
Yeah,
That's so
a
cool.
lot of people have a lot of questions about how the votes were counted.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what I've heard out there. A lot of people are saying it.
Yeah. I would
I'm not
love
saying
to
it's
see that
true.
evidence. I would love
look.
to see that evidence.
Hey, look, if you get the $914.99 ACDC bag, you win automatically. Like, I don't know what to say.
Right.
Like,
If I
there's-
only had that, I would not win.
I don't think. I mean, you're not winning with the 12/30/19 tweezer again. What else did you pick? I just gotta pull this out. Hold on. I gotta pull this back open here now that we're talking about it.
Just because you guys don't like.
Oh yeah, the
fucking-
overrated Ghost from Atlanta, the Set Your Soul Free from San Francisco, which is great. Don't get me wrong, which is great, but it's a very strange pick in the 25
Oh
to
my
26 minute
God.
range.
Yeah.
What the
This is
10/31/95 Yam? Come on, come on.
Brian, we can't all
the
just
jam that
choose-
is bringing you over the top is 914.99 ACDC bag. We all know this. It's
Listen,
okay.
I'm
It's
not
okay.
gonna lie about that. I drafted it first for a reason.
You did.
I drafted it first for a reason. But I will say that,
Heartless.
I'm not gonna win if I had a whipping post. I'm
Spineless.
gonna say that. If I had a whipping
Not
post,
a
I
friend.
don't think I would have won.
Not a
Not a friend.
Did I?
Oh
did
my
I?
God, low
Did I
blows.
pick the Providence Bowie first like I should have? No, I didn't because I'm a friend.
You
know.
didn't.
Oh my
Well, sore losers, all of you. Thank you to everyone who voted for me. You guys know I have the best list, and it's okay, guys. I'm sure you'll win the next draft.
No, I know. Yeah. I mean, I think appreciate it. Thank you for Megan for conducting your own survey with your own audience and determining that you won. I mean, it's really, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Listen, if I wasn't doing all of this unpaid labor running the HF Pod socials, I wouldn't have to put my own stuff
That's
out there.
true. Good point. Good
And
point.
Evie did. Oh wait, Justin Bruce. Here we go.
Yeah. There we go.
Justin knows this. We're in a thread with Ryan Storm, and it's sometimes easy to get under my skin, and you get the full Brinkman where it's undercuts and facts and just an assault of logical arguments against you. But I want to ask you guys, and I'd love to pose this question to the audience as well. Was it the 11/23/85 whipping post that did me in, or was it the 2003 jams? Because we all know that you all hate 2003 fish.
We'll find out. Why don't I put a poll out for that? We'll see.
Okay. Let's do another poll. Let's do
Let's do another poll.
All right.
If we've learned anything from 2024, it's that more polls will give us more answers and will help us win, right? No, that's not
Yes,
right.
definitely.
I do just want to say before we get into the business at hand, because we have a lot to cover here today. We're talking about a very, very big tour in fish history. We're going to do another draft. We are going to do a draft. One of our first episodes of 2025 will be a draft. And I'll just give you all the preview now because it's going to be fun. We're not going to do a traditional 2024 recap. We are going to do a 2024 shows draft. We've got it all organized already. Waiting on the MSG shows to throw them in there because nobody knows if they're going to play on the 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st like usual. But once those are posted, once we have those, we will compile the draft. We'll even send it out to you all so you can make your own personal drafts so that we can all work on this as a community. And we're going to decide on what the best shows are from 2024, knowing full well that Mondegreen is its own category, which means 3 Mondegreen shows have to be selected in the draft.
Oh, so
Wow.
crushing.
All right.
I'm
So-
excited about that. Wait, before we get into it, RJ, can we talk about our happy hour that we're having?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Are you
Please
guys
do.
going to be mean to me for this whole episode? Like, is this
No.
actually going to end? Okay,
No,
good.
nothing. No one's
Um,
being mean. Everyone's being super nice. It's
I
fine.
thought this was the helping friendly podcast.
No, not
Um,
anymore.
I mean, you got your
Yeah.
favorite tour ever in number 2. So, you should be happy about that. And you won the draft. All right. What doesn't matter
Well-
what we do.
Just so you know, I did draft the number 1 tour. So this is my
Wow.
favorite tour, number 2, but I did draft another of it. And I thought
did.
that would win
You
me
did.
some
That's a
points
good
with you
point.
guys for a while, but apparently short-lived bonuses over here. I'm going to tell everybody about a happy hour that we are having on the 29th. So night 2 at MSG. RJ and I we're going to be at the Moynihan train station at the bar there, the Irish Exit, and we're going to be hanging out. So come hang out with us before the show. Come pregame with us. I think there'll be some other Osiris family there too.
Yep. It's gonna be fun.
Sounds like
It's the
a
only
good
show I'm
time.
going to, so better come and hang while you can. Next week, a week from today, I'm gonna be in Northampton, Massachusetts at a Reprise show. Anyone who's in the area should come hang out there. The tickets are going fast, which is awesome. But if you can join us, join us. Also, we are going to be doing another episode of our Library Card podcast next week, Tuesday, right? Tuesday.
Yes, I can't wait. It's a more friendly
Tuesday.
environment.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about bee sting. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna have so much fun. So join us like on the internet somewhere and subscribe to that podcast if you haven't already, because that's how stuff works.
Yeah, and tell people about it who like to read, because it's a really awesome book podcast if you like nerds. Yes.
nerds.
Okay. So we're here to talk about the number 2 ranked tour of all time, according to us. The number 1 ranked tour of all time, according to fans. So we're here, we all know what's happening here. I guess before we get into the themes of the tour, I guess, can I just say a couple things about this tour from my perspective, and then
You can say more than a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
If we're talking about vibes, then this is number 1, no doubt. There's no doubt. There's never been a higher vibe tour. This is vibe tour number 1. I think personally, this is Fish at their peak powers of having the audience the most enraptured. It's hard to explain the energy that were in these shows, but like I went to Deer Creek on August 11th, and the next show I saw was Champaign, and it was like an electric environment, something I'd never experienced at a concert before. And there were not a lot of like gimmicks or gags. It was just electric every night. And I mean, it was just so I think if you're like ranking on vibes, which now we're a vibe podcast after last week, maybe the lowest percentage of like off shows of any of the tours we've talked about. But just, I mean, it's really it was just so sky high every single night. It was just amazing. So that's where I start when I think about this tour. Megan, what do you got?
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't see any of these shows. I saw some shows in the summer tour, and then I saw the MSG run at the end of the year. And I felt like I missed out because I think there was something about bringing that energy into the indoor space of a fall tour, and just this feeling of a band peaking for the second time, but also innovating while they're doing it and kind of looking for what's next. And that's what really surprised me when I listened back to this tour. I always think when you think about this tour, you just think you're like, it's the Funk Jam tour. Like that's what it is. But when you listen back to it, you realize there's so much going on, and it's just a part of what's going on in this tour. And that really, really stood out to me. And I think when I think about what is also, I think similar to what you're saying, is that there's no fat on this tour. Like these shows are short, they're well edited, they're like really played efficiently. And I think it's kind of like what we want Fish to do now. I think this is like the gold standard. You want Fish to come out and play like a couple tent pole monster jams and just play really tight around that. And all of their sets have this like narrative arc to them. And there's just such flow in these shows. I don't think there's any tour that we've listened to that every show seems to have this level of flow. There was just an ability to move between ideas that is just, it's phenomenal. And so many just legendary jams. It's crazy.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Brian, vibe tour number 1. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, everyone thinks that this is the best shit ever for a reason. I was probably still drinking out of a sippy cup at this point in time, RJ. I don't know. I was 12 years old during this tour, so I wasn't allowed to go to any fall 97 tours. My parents weren't like, yeah, just hop in a rabbit and go down to Champagne. Why don't you? In the middle, like right around the holidays. Are you kidding me? No, but like when I first got into Fish, I got into Fish through tapes from like 94, 95, and then like 99, 2000. And that was just what people were giving to me. And pretty much every person I talked to as I was getting into the band would always say, like, just wait till you hear Fall 97, dude. The funk, the jams everywhere. And the first Fall 97 show I heard was 12/6/97. And I remember just thinking I was listening to a completely different band. I remember when the official Live Fish release for 11/17/97 came out. And like, you look at that compared to like Live Fish number 7, which is from August 93. And like, you look at the back and you look at the song list and you're just like, these are two different bands. This is one band that is like, here's an idea, and then here's an idea, and then here's an idea. And then there's another band that's just like, let's just play these song for this, like for a long period of time and just see where it goes. And I see it here. Evie Dude is posting peak of set listing, set construction. That's my first like note about this tour. And like, I think it fits with the vibes. This is the best show structure in the history of the band. You look at any of these shows, like just pull up, Hampton night 1, Worcester night 1, McNichols night 2, the Nutter Center, which it isn't like as condensed, but like these are shows where like from a set listing standpoint, you set a narrative arc, that's a perfect way to put it. There's stuff in odd places that adds, like it elevates it being where it's placed at within the show structure. You start to see timestamps and you're like, oh my God, they played that song for that long. What the hell's going on? But I think also, as we get into this is a month that is mainly spent at the band's home turf. And this is going to align this tour with late fall 95 and with December 99, 2 other tours that are on our list, one of which we haven't talked about yet. The fact that the band is in the Northeast and just like kind of circling the Northeast for a 3.5, 4 week stretch of time while playing at this level just elevates it to a completely different point. RJ, you obviously think this is the Vibes tour, but can you just describe, like, you started seeing them in 95. You saw them, I'm guessing, in fall of 96. Like, as someone like yourself who had been collecting tapes, who'd been seeing shows, what was it like to hear this band just so fully connected on a show-by-show basis?
Yeah, I mean, I got to see 5 shows this tour, so it was incredible. It was incredible. It was not like I wasn't worried about, I think summer 97, I was more like, there were songs I wanted to hear. There were things I wanted to happen. I had maybe coincidentally also given up on that when Fish gave up on that. So it was sort of like, everyone was just there to party, and that to me was what it was, and every night was just, I mean, Champagne was so fun. Everything was so fun. Every night was just so fun. So I think that's it. It was just fun. Like the whole thing was just so fun. That's all I have. That's all I got.
I think there's something interesting, and we were talking a little bit about this offline, and maybe it's lame to talk about, but the music really met the moment in a way that is really singular. I was thinking a lot about the Grateful Dead and the acid tests. And I do think that there's a way that the music really met a lot of what was going on in the party scene at this moment. And I think in a way that kind of enhanced the music and also made it just so vibey. And I think that that's something that like is maybe lame to talk about, but also really a big part of what was happening in 97 because so many of the people in the audience were partying the same way. And so
Yeah.
there was definitely like the music meeting the moment and the music changing because of that and people hearing the music a certain way because of that.
Yeah. What are there any? Do we need to know anything, Megan?
I mean, I think we kind of know what's happening, right? We know
Yeah.
that they're coming back to the US, and I mean, the 2 tours before this are on this top 25 list. So you know that this is like, this is the
True.
second peak. But this is 21 shows in this tour. Start out west. They hit Illinois, which is a weird routing thing, but glad for you, RJ. Then they go down to the southeast, the northwest, and then, like Brian said, they're back to the Midwest, and then they end in upstate New York. And they're there for a while. And there are 121 jam chart entries and 21 shows. We are at
Wow.
5.76 jams per show, crushing any other tour. Like nobody's gotten over low 4s, like and not even close. So this is really the highest jam per show tour of any that we've talked about. And you hear it when you listen to it.
Hell of a ratio.
We talked
really
about a lot
is.
of like great jammy tours of
Yeah.
late. Like the top 10 have been filled with great jammy tours, but there's nothing like this.
Nothing.
There's just
Yeah.
nothing. Like my list for 21 shows is what my list was like for fall 94.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
Well,
it's
because
everywhere.
and they're jamming everywhere, right? They're jamming in the first set. They're jamming like second song, first song. They don't care. They will jam, and it's kind of like, yeah. I feel like when I was listening to it, I was like, this is what everybody wants to see at every show. It's really the gold standard. It is, like you said.
Well, it can't be the gold standard because we got one more ahead of it.
It's true, the silver standard.
should we talk at all about like why this is here and have that internal
Yeah.
debate since we just had the who won the draft internal debate?
Yeah. I mean,
there's no debate for that.
You guys go ahead because.
So I think, and don't take my word for it, I'm just a noob who's never seen any good shows. I see y'all in the comments. I've never seen any good shows. You've all seen better shows than me. I celebrate you all. I'm sorry that my parents didn't sleep together 5-6 years earlier.
Oh my God.
I just couldn't do it. I couldn't go to these shows. I think that this tour for a long time in my brain has had the argument of being the best tour that they've ever played. I think that there's a reason why Undermine did an entire season on Fall 1997 on every single show, and someone out there put together a list of 25 shows that lead up to that and give you the context of why it is, because context is essential. But those shows, this whole tour is filled with shows that are just like from one night to another, like it feels like the best show of a week or the best show of a tour happened and then happened again and then happened again and again and again. I think my argument for this being here, we'll talk a little bit more about next week when we do our number 1 tour, but this tour required a previous peak to get here. This is the Reinvention tour. This is the band saying, we've reached this level. What do we do next? And we've talked about this a lot because 97, we've included 3 out of the 4 tours from this year. They did a winter, a summer Europe, summer US, and then this. So we've talked a lot about this year. And I think we've talked a lot about that experimentation, and that reinvention is so critical for the longevity of the band. But from my perspective, this tour only happens if you've already peaked as a band. And if you've already said, and I'm going to make this case later, this is the Octune Baby to the Joshua Tree. This is the Kid A to OK Computer. This is a band. This is Sergeant Pepper's to Rubber Soul Revolver. This is a band that has already reached the mountaintop and already has accomplished everything you ever could accomplish, and then says what's next. And we're so lucky that it only took 2 years to get something of this level, that I think you could make a very, very clear cut argument on everything that we've said thus far about show structure, jams, segues, the vibes, whatever it is, that this is the best tour of all time. But I do think you have to acknowledge the fact that you had to get here via another peak. So I'll yield the floor to my jaded vets here.
I think you said it perfectly. I think was my rationale when we were drafting and I had the first pick and I picked Fall 95. I think that a band has to discover greatness to be great. And so Fall 95 is them discovering greatness and stepping into that. And this is a tour where they already had the audience, and 95, they had to kind of get it. And I just think that when you're growing an audience and you take risks like they do in Fall 95, it is so badass and just so unbelievable of a band to do that. Where in 97, like RJ, I think what you were saying at the beginning about like the crowd being so enraptured, because we were sold. Like everybody in those arenas in 95, we were there, or 97, like we knew what we wanted. We were there for Fish. And like you were saying, Brian, we're very lucky that they were reinventing themselves, but we would have been there anyway. And that's because of Fall 95. So I think that it's the same argument. I agree. What do you think, RJ?
I love how RJ is just sitting here calmly, just like stroking his chin, just like I gotta fucking kill these guys.
It's fine. I mean, first of all, Octune Baby fucking rules, and it's
100%.
amazing.
That's why I made the argument.
Yeah, periods of reinvention or rediscovery are, I think, as important as the initial discoveries in most cases. But this is a band that's the argument for this being the number one tour, which I think we've all acknowledged, is that this is a band that's purely, it's like they're soaring. It's like there's no dips, there's no dive, there's no ebbs and flows. It's just fucking full flight the entire time. And I think that if you look at Summer 97, I think there's, some interesting points of Summer 97. We talked about it at length. I thought Summer 97 was like kind of up and down, but then ending at the Great Went with this like amazing last show, especially was like the start of what we hear in this tour. I think is like it's not just funk, right? There's this like they're starting to like cycle through these jam ideas but they're so grounded and they're so like established. There's not a lot of experimentation, I think, would be probably the main criticism of this tour if you were to get down on that level, right? Like I don't think they're really figuring stuff out on the fly. I think they've already kind of figured everything out, and it's working through it in a way that is fun and easy, but also like that is clearly connecting with the audience. So I think if you're looking for just like electric energy and unstoppable, actually Fish Destroying America, it's like very apt. This is it. But I think the one knock you could have is that there's not a lot of like breaking new ground. I think a lot of the peak jams of this tour are kind of like reworking old approaches, but in slightly different ways. But I don't think there's a lot of new ground. So I guess that's the one criticism. But I just think the energy is just outrageous. It's just unmatched.
Can I ask you a question about Brian? Go ahead, and then I'll ask a question after.
Well, I was going to agree with that. The one thing I would add is I hear a lot of that. There's a lot of, and listening to this in the context of the overall series, there's a lot more Trey arrogance at the top of this tour than I recall hearing, and maybe it's just like my headspace when I was listening to it. But what I love about this tour is that it does evolve so that towards the end it's a bit weirder and there's a bit more of that experimentation. But I think you're absolutely right, RJ. This is a band that is no longer necessarily trying to become the best band in the world. They kind of just know that they are, and then they take the stage every night. Like you heard it in Trey's interview in Bittersweet Motel at Rochester, where he says, you know, most tours were promoting an album, and this tour there's no album promotion, so we're not written up in Rolling Stone. Nobody really knows we're on tour, and we're having the best tour in years. There's that, like, there's still this underground cultish thing to the, you know, left side of the country that nobody else is really paying attention to, and they're playing at this personal level that they don't necessarily have to try and search for something as much as
Yeah.
they just go on stage and say, let's play this weird Rolling Stones cover. Oh, here it is. 17 minutes later, we're in this crazy dripping funk zone. So go ahead, Meg.
Yeah, I think that both of what you're saying is kind of leading to my question that I was thinking about when I was listening to this tour. And RJ, I love that the word soaring, because I feel like that's really what it feels like. And so I've always thought, and I really thought it when I was listening back to this, that this fish destroys America isn't really like the language that I think it is. Like when I think of them destroying, I think of like them coming out with like this fall 95 or like even like 93, 94, when they're just so crazy and energetic and like hungry. This is more like fish like owns America, or fish captivates America, or fish like dominates America. It's a different vibe to me than like coming out and like chewing up the scenery and like destroying something. It's more of like I don't know, it feels to me that there's kind of just like a soaring, like we have this, we can just do whatever we want. And I think that speaks to that arrogance. There's such an effortless feeling to all of it, and they're so willing to just get completely lost. And I think that's something that I kind of forgot about when I was listening to this, but it just made me think that this isn't like the hungry tour. It's like the decadence tour.
It's like third term FDR.
Yeah. Yes.
Like we just we know we're gonna win this war. We've rebuilt the nation. This shit is gonna go off in like 10 years, and it's all because of me. And I'm breaking with precedent, and I'm running a third term. And get the fuck out of here, Lindbergh, you psychopath. You know, this is very much like we know that we know we're the shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's also a lot of space in these jams. There's a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of diversity in the sound, I think, which is maybe what a couple of the people in the comments were saying, that there is like, there's diversity, but I think in terms of like pure experimentation on stage, you don't hear as much of that, but there's like, they're comfortable, you know, it was very comfortable from the start. I mean, just from that first show in Vegas, it just is like, it's just, they're comfortable on stage, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that first show is like, and I'm just trying to check set list, but fish.net is currently offline for upgrades, so can't do that. Great timing, guys. But that first show is like, I don't think anybody would regard it as one of the best shows of the overall tour. But it has that incredible stash. It has a huge Mike's groove. I think that there's a
Love
Yem
that
in there.
Mike's.
Like, it's just like, even in a show that we're so accustomed to thinking of tour openers as like, let's just settle in, see what's happening. That show is a brilliant display of this band already at this high level.
Yeah, they came in so ready to play.
Yeah. They okay, let's listen to a voicemail about that first show. How's that sound? It's our last voicemail of the episode. Can we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, it's Bryce. I just wanted to call and let you know that I'm okay with Fall 97 being number 2. And on that topic, I was at the tour opener on 11/13/97 in Vegas. It was pretty cool. The venue was tarped off like behind the stage. I don't know if everybody knows that. It felt pretty small in there as a result. Like it was like 2/3 of the arena. Black Eyed Kitty really blew me away. Like it was noticeably something new. And afterwards, I was like, what was that? Was that kind of moment? The Yem funk had some really characteristic Jedi tone from Trey. that was great. It was like Fall 97 right away. He couldn't wait to get it out there. It started during Page's Tramp solo. And I guess you just can't hold back the Fall 97 song. It was ready to burst forth. Got to talk about the stash in the second set. That was amazing. What a stash. Some of my favorite alien music ever. Page's twirling synths. We land in the sounds of the deep sea around the 15-minute mark. It was really a trip. And the way it swells back up and into stash is so good. And it elicits an audible cheer on the odd. So listen for that. Anyway, maybe a stash second set opener show. That could be a whole show unto itself. Caspian was pretty cool. It was like a kind of a neat how Trey trilled with the melody around the melody. It was like a trance-like bass and less varied than Caspian nowadays. There was a jam in mics that started off sounding more like a 94 rather than a 97 jam, but with like more thunder boom bass behind it. And the second jam starts around 10 minutes in. Second jam immediately allows for some more space between the sounds. Beautifully delicate, a quiet floating jam. And, you know, it was a great tour opener overall. I'd say a funny thing. Hey, great tour openers. That's another show idea. Anyway, one of my friends still says to this day that it was the worst performance by any artist he's ever seen. Just goes to show you what kind of shows he's seen. Anyway, you guys.
That's awesome.
All right.
That's a take from your buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got to talk about jams because we got to get going here. There's too
Let's
much.
do it.
There's too much to talk about. Where do you guys want to start?
I mean, I have like a way that I think about these jams. Can I explain that?
Yeah.
That's
That-
what I said.
I feel like there's 4 unbelievably top tier jams, like that are just so incredibly legendary. And I think they're all kind of characterized where the funk groove takes them to these like wide open spaces where they start to like then lean into dissonance, and then you've got the ambient looping and then just free floating exploration, kind of like what the caller was just talking about. So I have those 4 jams. I'm curious if you agree that these are kind of like the top jams. And then I want to talk about some other jams that are like not as kind of like not at that level, but I think really interesting and kind of really dig into the sound of this tour. So the 4 that I had for the
Yeah,
did
I wanna
you
hear
want to
them.
say something, Brian? Okay.
No, I want to hear him because I got 4 in my head.
Okay. I thought the Hampton Bag from 1121, the Denver Ghost from 1117, the Haley's Hampton from 1122, and the Worcester Gym from 1129, which someone I know drafted, and I think it was a pretty good pick. But so those were kind of the 4 that I felt like were probably the most indicative of like the fall 97 sound and the biggest ones. But I have others that I like just as much or more. But I was curious as to what you guys thought about that.
I definitely had the Ghost and the Haley's on my list. I'm glad you went with the
Mhm.
bag. I think I would have gone with the Tweezer from the Palace. I just think that's a perfect jam.
Into
Um,
Isabella.
into Isabella, and like the fact that you go from this very like blissy kind of just gorgeous like purpley type music that just like floats in the arena, and then it turns into this Hendrix style shred fest that goes into Isabella, which is one of the covers of the year. Not to digress too much, but like the Gym is an interesting pick to me because that is the one jam that does not sound like Fall 97 to me. That sounds like Fish is at a level of confidence that they can do whatever they want, and they play a jam that to my ears sounds more in the vein of 1995 in the sprawl and in the fact that it's just like, now it definitely has like the funk elements, I think you're right, and it has like the watery kind of blissfulness, but it feels like a band that is almost just like like a film director just being like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to release the 3.5 hour long version
Yeah.
of this movie because
Yeah.
I made it and my head's, like I know better than you. And like I feel like that jam is that, to where the band is at this point in time, is them just stepping on stage and just saying, yeah, of course we're going to play it uninterrupted for an hour.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it just has all the elements of 97. It's just like stretched out so long that it just explores like other places. But yeah, I see what you mean. RJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not how I think about it at all. So, but I appreciate that. It's hard for me to separate the whole tour. And I don't know. I just don't think about this tour in the context of top jams. It's
Yeah.
just not because the shows are so different. Like, and
Mm,
they're so, and they're like, they're, I mean, it's just a personal thing also because I've listened to them so many times that it's hard to separate the jams from the shows for me.
definitely. I think that's so true, especially because of the nature of how these shows flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like when I make a list of the jams that are hitting me as I go through these tours, I will sometimes just put like set 2 as
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
that's the jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's pretty sparse on other tours, but like this I have 11:14 set 2, 11:21, 11:28, 12:6, and 12:12. I think that
Hmm.
that's all that. And there's other ones that you can make a very clear case argument. So like I'm sure someone's frantically typing right now that I'm wrong and it's new because
Yeah, exactly.
I was eating baby formula in fall 97. But
You're not
but
that
like,
much younger than us, Brian. You need to cut this out. Like, this is making me feel
I
old. I'm not
I've been
into that.
told for 25 years that like, hey man, you missed it. You were a
You just
baby.
missed it.
You missed it all. No, but like I think to your point, RJ, it is hard in some cases to just be like this isolated jam because like when you say the 11:21 bag, to me you have to have the ghost that goes into it, and you have to have the slave that
Yeah.
comes out of it, and then the loving cup that adds this like one final exclamation point. Because so many of these shows are about another quote from Trey from Bittersweet, like nobody cares, nobody's coming here to hear us hit all the changes. They're coming here for the energy, they're coming here for the vibes, and you get that in these shows big time, and they
Mhm.
last for a full hour 15 minutes.
It was
Yeah, I think,
so
and
hard to listen to this, to prep for this, because you just can't turn it off.
yeah, I think those 4 jams that you mentioned are all great, and probably like the 4 best representations of it. It's just not how I think about it. I mean, I also think like the tweezer from the Palace. I mean, that was at that show, so it's a little bit different. But
No, it's
I just think
amazing.
I think it's a little. It gets like it gets jumbled in with the Isabella, which is fine because the segues in this tour are amazing, and there's so many that are so great. There are 2 awesome ones in that show alone, but it's kind of overshadowed by the combination because the tweezer itself is
Yeah.
just amazing. Like Brian kind of described it, but they, you know, I was like right off the floor, straight ahead, looking at the stage, that show, and like the bathtub gin into foam in the first set, which is just absolutely perfect. They did this so many times this tour where the segues were just amazing. So that like the tweezer Isabella is a great combo, but the tweezer itself I just think is it's up there, and I think it doesn't stand alone because of the combo, which is maybe not fair to that particular jam, but this tour is just it's too much. I
I can see
mean,
that, but I also have an argument that like that's what makes the jam even better is that it has this like unbelievable segue at the end of it. I think to me
yeah,
that's like when you can come out of a jam and land in like a classic rock cover. I mean, they do that so many times on this tour where they find jams out of these songs. Like they were doing covers so well on this tour. Like they pick the perfect covers. They're just like either like shred fest or they're funk fest or they're doing something like Roses Are Free, like picking this song and just absolutely like making it their own and exploding it in this way. That's just, I think this is, you always think of like 98 as like the year of covers, but I feel like this is the year they were doing covers the best. They were finding covers to play
yeah,
that were so perfect for their sound. And so I totally know what you mean that the tweezer could stand alone, but the fact that it flows into this Isabella and this like is just so incredible. Like the energy of that is just amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, like the ghost into AC/DC bag that at the Hampton show. I mean, like the segue just incredible, and that ghost is
Oh,
so tight, so funky.
Yeah.
It's like everything's totally dialed in. There's a little bit of like meandering, but the segue is just killer. It's just there's so much.
Oh.
There's just so
And
much.
I mean, the fact that Ghost is played 4 days after the Denver one, which would
Right.
be my pick for the best Ghost. Which Meg, you're free to take now when we do the best Ghost draft. In
I'm going to make a
6-8 months
note
or
of that
so.
right now. I'm going to make a note of that right now.
That's the best Ghost that's ever been played. And so yeah, I expect you to take it first.
It's my second favorite jam of this tour, just so you know.
What's your number one?
I mean, I think it's the Hampton Bag. I just fucking love that. I love
Yeah.
that jam. I love that
Shreddy.
jam. Yeah.
But then,
it's-
like, you know, the Ghost that precedes that, like there's the one
Yeah.
after the Denver one is completely different from the Denver Ghost.
Yeah.
Why not? Like,
Yeah.
like one thing I think, RJ, you've made a really good point about in episode after episode, and you've beat it into our heads. And I'm finally here to like submit myself and agree with it, that a lot of these tours that we've talked about, the one downfall of doing this series is that we've realized a lot of these tours find a thematic sound, and then that
Yeah.
sound is the sound of the tour. And by the time you're done prepping for the episode, you're like, okay, I'm good with hearing that sound. And I think what we saw something turn when we moved into like the top 5 or 6. But I think
Yeah.
this tour, while it's not the most different sound from show to show, you know, you do have this like 4-day gap between a all-timer version of Ghost and then a version that has no interest in soloing, has no interest in rock. It's Trey playing chords and like the band slowly building it up and bringing it back down and building it up and bringing it back down, and then segueing into AC/DC Bag, which lo and behold is now a jam vehicle. So you just get like, you get experiment. We kind of negated the term experimentation up front, but like you get this dexterity between styles and between ideas that they're just able to do. You know, it's reminiscent of like Jordan in 92 and 93, where he's not inventing new moves. He just knows the court and he knows his teammates. And so he plays in a manner that is just like, you've never seen a basketball player play that level before, because not only is he technically at this peak period, but also he knows it. And so you get that with Fish. They know that they're as great as possible. So it doesn't matter how we play, we're going to play great.
Well, there's a fluidity to it that I think is what makes the flow so great, and what I imagine Michael Jordan played like in 92. I don't know, but I imagine it was very fluid. And I think that when you're in the zone like this, when you're soaring like this, as you said, RJ, you're able to do crazy shit that just like works. Like, you know, play this brand new cover and Roses Are Free, and then end up in Blackberry Creature from Mars, into Ghost, into Downward Disease Reprise. Like, you're just able to do, you're so flexible. And I think that you see that pay off over and over again in these shows.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Denver Ghost more. Let's talk about it more.
Let's do
Brian.
it. Let's do it.
Tell me all about it.
When we started the Undermine series about Fall 97, in the lead up to that, which was 25 shows that led to Fall 97, curated by Brian Brinkman. Thank you, Brian. But we knew that we were going to like talk to Trey about one of these shows, and this was like immediately, it's like we have to talk to him about this Denver Ghost. But he talked about how like he described it as like surfing a wave on Page's piano during that solo.
Ugh.
And like, first of all, to have Trey listening back to Fish jams and then talking about them, it's just outrageous.
That's a podcast idea.
It
I'll tell
is.
you what.
It is.
Seriously.
It's the
My
podcast.
God.
It's
My
the
God.
ultimate podcast.
The ultimate.
Oh my God.
But I
Lose
think
my
that's like,
mind.
it's not what I would have expected him to say, you know, that he was like in the back, like almost reacting to what Page was doing. But I mean, that's the soloing in that Ghost around that, whatever it is, like right in the middle. I mean, it's just tremendous. I think this is like my top, it's like definitely in my top 5 jams of all time. I think it's just amazing. And then, you know, in that set, that first set, like the tweezer and then Reba, and then there's like Trey's like kind of laughing in between Reba and Train Song, and then the Ghost, and then Fire. I mean, it's just like, what the fuck, man? I mean, what are you doing? It's just it's totally insane.
It's so good. That moment when Paige is like drives the song into the Bliss section on the piano, it's every time I hear it, it just like makes me just like, it just makes me like stop. Like I can't even believe how beautiful it is. Paige does that so many times on this tour which you don't expect because it's this like funk kind of swaggery, and then he just comes in with the piano and super dramatic, and it just completely shifts the jam in such a way that is so sophisticated and incredible. And you can hear him and Trey like have so many moments in this tour that they're just talking to each other in a way that's incredible. And I always love this jam because at the like droning ambient melt, and then Trey comes on and is like, we're going to have some more music, for your dancing and listening pleasure. Like it's so sexy. I'm like this. I mean, I know this is Fish's like sexiest tour, but like Trey, like lounge singer, like talking to the crowd like that. It's just, I can't take it. It's too good. It's just so good. This is perfect jam.
And I don't that beat from Fishman. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not like a huge fan of the second set of that show. I think it's good, but is this the one of two Jesus Just Left Chicago's from this tour that are just like the patience along with the perfect playing of a cover like that? That to me, this and the Dayton version are both just they're so good, and there's no rush, but it's like perfectly played and just kind of like what a different kind of vibe in the middle of a second set, like with all kinds of shit going on. That show is just it's amazing, and that was the third, fourth show of the tour. I mean, it's just crazy. Can we talk about this controversial Wolfman's brother from Champaign?
We have to. I want to talk about
Can I just give a quick little bump for
Please.
the Johnny Be Good from the second set?
Oh,
of Denver. I agree with you. The second set does not work as well as the first set. You have the mix of the cow funk and tweezer, and then the Ghost, which is one of the most perfectly played note for note jams we've ever heard. But the Johnny Be Good, it sounds like a 98 jam. Like it sounds like it comes out of the Island tour. It sounds like a band that is already thinking 2 steps ahead. And it kind of reminds me of that Ghost from Hampton, where you get more chordal jamming, you get just like space exploration, whereas the Ghost feels more rooted in rock and roll and funk and American sounds in a way that kind of is representative of this tour and is part of the reason I think it's one of the best Fish jams ever. But that Johnny Be Good, as an aside, if you have not heard that in some time, please seek it out. It's so good.
I love how they play that song so much on this tour, and Trey still doesn't really know the lyrics. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
Every time he's like, yeah. Like there's like always a moment or two when he's like kind of just like moan, like saying something. It's so great. But the fact that they can find that space out of that song is just blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about the changes,
It's all about the energy.
It's all about the energy.
Get the fuck out of here, Brad,
Yeah.
Kiss my ass, you fucking tool.
Oh my God. So what do you guys think about this Wolfman's brother? Because there's a couple examples in this tour just of like how wired into my brain this music is. Like every time that I hear Wolfman's brother, I hear Trey saying yeah, like he does at the beginning. That's awesome.
I love that.
They go a lot of places in this jam. There's like it's kind of late, it's like pretty laid back for a while, and then Trey just pushes it into this like really kind of up tempo hard rock jam, and then it goes into this blues space, which somehow then goes into Makasupa, which I think is it's a really fun jam, but I don't know. I think maybe people don't like it as much as I do. What do you guys think?
I think it's very aggressively Trey, and I think that's similar to the Bathtub Gin from Winston-Salem. There are a few moments where you're like, maybe we should listen to the other 3 guys in the band. Like, I think that's the point of this era of Fish. But that said, if you want that, this is maybe the best example of that. Because he is just like, imagine being so good at your craft that you are fully comfortable and confident standing in front of 15,000 people shredding for 11 or 12 minutes. Like, I feel like you should play this for, run down your list of Rolling Stones top guitarist list of like how many of them had the opportunity and the trust and the belief in their audience and the patience of their audience to be like, you go off for 12 minutes. So like it's a huge accomplishment, but it's almost like sorry to make another basketball reference here, but it's almost like Kobe's 81 points, where like at some point the other 4 Lakers just stopped doing anything. They just were feeding the ball to Kobe. And so like you get that out of this jam where it's just like, Trey, just go. And sometimes I really want that.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, there's no doubt it's an amazing accomplishment. It's funny, and I think maybe this jam was a sacrificial lamb in this way, but this project requires a lot of intense listening. I think everybody probably knows that, but I just want to say that again. You can't be like just doing other shit all the time. And so you're trying to find moments to listen to music when you can really concentrate on it. And I'm looking for things to stop me in my tracks. And so for this one, it didn't. And maybe I just was distracted in that moment, but it's a great jam. It wasn't to me like one of the ones where I was like, oh man, like I will be going back to this like right away as soon as I can. And I have a list of like 10 of those that I felt like, but maybe 15. But this is the show also that Trey said he didn't like one of these sets, right? It must have been the first set, right? Or the second. Like this is the show that he said he didn't like one of these sets. I'm so curious.
There's 2 sets in this tour that he did not like.
Yeah.
And yes, this is definitely, the show has one.
The show is one of them. And I mean, but the show's great. Like it's got that super cool Makasupa. Like, I don't know. This is cool.
I mean,
stuff in Fee.
the bathtub gin in the first set, which is like this euphoric jam, and then somehow perfectly segues into Llama, which is just outrageous. But the rest of the set is fine. I think there must have been some miscommunication. It's not a great first set overall, but the way they hit that Llama and from bathtub gin is just,
Yeah.
I mean, fucking.
It's not the greatest first set overall, but like
the bar is very high.
It's still very, like compared to a lot of their career, it's a good set. You know, it's a really good first set.
I wonder how often he said that in
3.0.
04. In 04, did he like come off say like every show?
Yeah.
That's what I would say about most of 04. All right.
Sounds like a personal
Brian,
dig. Wow. So tact.
Brian, I want to hear a jam from you, but first I want to hear from our sponsors. Okay, Brian, take us where you want to take us.
Well, I'm going to talk about 2004 because we need to address. No, I'm joking. Trying to decide about where I want to go. There's
I know,
so
I'm
much.
curious about where you're going to go.
So I'm going to go with one of the sets that I listed that has a number of jams in it because, let's just let me talk a little bit longer.
Yeah.
The 12-12 second set, because I want to go with something that's not officially released. There's a couple. I was going to go 12-2, but this Saw It Again, Piper, Swept Away, Steep, Caspian, which is 18.5 minutes, into Isabella, Tweezer Reprise. This is an hour and 2 minutes long. It's kind of emblematic of everything we've been talking about, where it's songs in non-traditional places that work really well, and where they're placed, they blow out and they're huge. And it's also a set that when you press play on Saw It Again, you have to listen all the way through Tweezer Reprise, and you can't really join midway through. And I think a lot of it, like you get this very hyper aggressive, just intense, hard rocking jamming in Piper, and you get the same sort of like big aggressive arena rock in Prince Caspian, but within both of those as well, you get contemplation and you get these kind of moments of silence, and you get kind of a theme that I've been thinking about as I listen through this tour. That Meg, you said it earlier, like it's known as kind of the funk tour, but when I listen to it, and the Stash from 1113 is a great example, the End of the Ghost from Denver, that Makasupa from Champaign that you were just talking about, the best parts of this tour have nothing to do with funk. They're either Trey shredding at a very high level, or it's this kind of quiet rhythmic space that the band has found that they're going to build upon over the next 2 years. And this set as a whole, which I will just submit as a singular jam, has all of that in one, and all of that in 3 minutes longer than the Runaway Jim from Worcester. Like
That's
Yeah.
this
crazy.
set
That's
is
so
3
crazy.
minutes longer than that. So like you're just getting a band that is a diversity of ideas, confidence, and then being able to just flow and connect ideas together in a way that either works in one jam or works across multiple jams.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
I love that.
getting these tapes. Like this is one of the, obviously second to last show, but you see this on a set list and it's just amazing,
Oh,
Yeah.
like what a great construction. The only thing I would say to add to what you said is that this Piper is kind of like a foreshadowing of what the song would become, because really you don't get this is the first tour where you really get Piper like, darker, harder edged, and then kind of like mellowing space toward the end in that jam. It's just like that'll be like 10 or 15% of Fish's jamming over the next however many years is that comes from that.
Right. Yeah,
It's just kind of
exactly.
crazy, but it kind of comes alive during this tour.
that's a good point.
Oh God, that set. I was driving home in the rain last night or 2 nights ago listening to that set. And I was just like, wow, this set is such a vibe. It's so good.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Brian,
Shout out
yeah.
one night earlier. Sorry, Jackson
Yeah.
Richard just noted the Rochester Drowned, which
Fuck
gets
yes.
into that space that we were talking about. It's beautiful, it's melodic, it's spacious. Like we're getting past cowfunk here, and we're starting to
Yeah.
look towards what's next. And that's just, I mean, obviously goes into the first Roses Are Free, but that's a killer jam.
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk about that show. The only thing I wanted to say was
Mhm.
just, you were mentioning the kind of like misconceptions around it being funk, and I think if you go back to like that 11-14 show that we were talking about before, which by the way, I think that second set is 54 minutes long, which is just kind of amazing.
Insane. It's so short. But
It's
like honestly, how many times on this show have we said, just stop the set there and
Yeah.
just walk off? Like they're
I
so
love a
efficient.
54-minute set. It just
If
allows
it's
me to
this
go home
good,
earlier.
yeah, I'd fucking definitely love it. If it's not this good, I would not love it. But like when they're playing really well and you can do it really tightly, I feel like now they love to tack on a couple songs that don't always like add something.
That Wolfman's though that opens the second set, that has like it's a groove oriented, it's kind of grungy, it's like really, it's not funk. And I think there are a lot of jams on this
Mhm.
tour that have these totally different sounds of them that are really awesome, in addition to all the super fun funky jams.
Yeah, because we're getting to the we're getting to the point where the funk has like it's so like drenched throughout Summer Europe '97, and the
Yeah.
further we get from that, it's kind of at times becoming a crutch. Even in ways I enjoy, like the Philly jam out of Possum is just kind of like, hey, let's vamp for a little bit. Why not? Everyone loves it, but like that's a really fun jam, and like it clearly leads to promising places. But we do start to hear as the tour evolves, the band start to think, okay, well, how can we use this sound to get to wherever we're going to go next? And within 4 months, they're going to play a standout run that will sound somewhat like Fall '97, but also this new beast entirely because of this work that they've done.
But that's what I think is actually amazing about this tour is because I was talking about this a little bit at the beginning, and the jam I want to talk about next is really indicative of this, is that they're peaking, but they're still like looking over the mountain to see what's next. They're not just like staying in what's gotten them there. And I think that's one of the reasons why this band is so amazing. But I really want to talk about the Down with Segues from Rochester. This jam is amazing. It's the second song of the show. It's really wild and thrashing, and then it gets so jazzy, and the funk just starts to slow down, and you hear them doing this a lot where they take a funk riff and just completely like stretch it out and slow it down, and it becomes really sexy and just kind of dripping with confidence. And at one point it almost comes to like a complete stop, and they pause and then drop right back in, and it's like when you're watching a scene, it's so good. When you're watching a scene in a movie and two actors are having this really intense conversation, and then one of them says something that's just so perfect and poignant in like the perfect delivery. It's that hitting that moment so right. That's what they do multiple times in these shows, and especially in this jam. It's just oh my God, it's so good when they come back in and they're using this technique, this stop start that they've like, learned in the funk, but they're doing it in such a sophisticated, mature way that it becomes like a much more kind of elevated thing. And I think this jam I've listened to like 3 times this week, and I've been listening to all of this stuff, but I just keep going back to it because it's really beautiful. And then it kind of creeps into that maze, which is really good. But I know we're going to talk about this show, so I won't get into it. But yeah, that jam.
That analogy you made though about this kind of being like a dialogue rich scene where one of the actors then says something perfectly delivered. Like, think about how hard and how much of a lengthy process it is to get to that moment where like a
Oh my
scene in
God,
the movie gets you.
totally.
Like, that's multiple drafts on a script, that's rehearsals, that's shooting and reshooting and then editing. This is in the moment, and I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that the more we listen through this, these tours, and as we get to the end of this series, the amount of jams that we've heard that feel like that, and knowing that this is a band that is in the moment playing this show to you, but also constantly tinkering and moving forward. And you get moments like that. It's all the more impressive. Yeah, this jam kind of has that, because this jam has that hard edge out of Disease, and then that space and that quiet that you don't necessarily connect with funk, but is there. It's part of
Mhm.
it's the groove kind of preview.
Let's talk about shows. What do we need to do? What do we
Well,
need
can
to
we
do
talk
here?
about one more jam, because we had an
I hope it's
offline
the one we have to
conversation.
talk about. Yeah,
We
yeah.
had an
Yeah, only if
offline
Yeah.
only if you're not going to talk about the show also.
I'm not going to talk about this show.
Okay.
No.
Great.
I'll talk about this show later. This is a very controversial pick. But this is something that I think we should at least address.
Yes.
The Wolfman's Brother from 11:30. This is the 3rd song, I want to say, of the show. This is a very strange show. It opens with Gaiuti, goes into a 15-minute Funky Bitch, and then a 30-minute Wolfman's, which includes teases of Heartbreaker, Sanity, and Esther. This is described as a yin-yang improvisational version. Following the expected funk, the jam breaks into 9+ minutes of lush, beautiful, and delicate playing. By around 15:30, some dissonance creeps into the mix, and they launch into an insane heavy metal pentagram death jam that the riff cycles over and over and over again. And Chris Kuroda ultimately ends up killing the lights. I think Trey was behind the rig. A lot of people don't like this jam. When I was listening through this tour, this struck me as probably the most experimental and risk-taking jam of the overall tour, because it does have that beautiful period up front, which is some of the prettiest ambient type of music that they played throughout the tour. And then it has this riff that is really just about like, can we all stay in rhythm? It's like a raga almost, like,
Yeah.
can we all do this? Can we all build upon this? Are we going to lose the audience? And I fully understand and accept why people would not like this, but like, it does something for me that I really enjoy. And Meg, I think you had a positive reaction to it as well. So what are your thoughts on this?
I love this jam. It's funny because I kind of forgot, or maybe I didn't know that people hated this jam, but to me, it's the most organic jam that I've maybe ever heard. There's no attempt to take it in one direction or not. And I think the willingness to float somewhere and stay there and exist in a musical space is so, to me, that's very risky. And it just has this, like a trance feeling to it. And how they stick with it at the end, like when it gets to that like grinding part at the end, it's so, I don't know, I just feel like to me, it's really compelling when someone's willing to take a risk artistically like that and sit in it and just let it go. And the fact that they land in an Elvis song is fucking amazing. Like, it's amazing. Like, who would ever think of that except Fish?
Way to connect yourself to like larger American music. Yeah.
I don't even know. It's so good. Like, to me, I love this stuff.
RJ, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm kind of agnostic about it. I mean, I think it's like the deviations from the norm are great. I think yeah. I mean, I guess I've just maybe listened to this stuff too much to have like real, authentic, new opinions about it. Like I've heard this jam so many times that it's like it's the thing it is, and I like it because it's part of this it's part of this adventure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
also they start to go back, down toward obviously to Philly and then back toward the Midwest after the show. So it's like another kind of like milestone in the tour, where they like finish up this 3-night run after Thanksgiving and then go to this like again like another group of shows that's just totally. It was just like an endless party. I assume there's a lot of drugs involved in this show, and I
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm never going to be sad about listening to it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I like it. I don't have anything bad to say, but I'm not gonna use some of the same words that Megan did.
Diplomatically said, RJ.
I mean, this whole tour is like there's nothing bad. There's literally nothing bad about the entire tour. There's not a single show or jam that I don't like. Sorry.
I love that. It's true.
I wish I had something.
I will say this is one of those tour. I think this is the tour that sounds as good in audience recording as it does in soundboard. And I think that is one of the things that makes it really enjoyable to listen to is that you can fire up, re-listen, and throw any show on, even if it's been officially released. And the taper's got those rooms just perfect. And the way that the band sounds with the instruments bouncing off the walls versus the way that those instruments sound through the soundboard. Oh man, I will take both of them. But yeah, let's talk shows here because there's a lot.
There's a lot. Megan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really want to talk about the Rochester show because I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I think it's, to me, probably one of the best shows, and it should be released. I mean, this is so highly rated. It's rated just below 12/30/97, like barely below it, which is a tiny bit crazy. But, of course, the show's taped for Bittersweet Motel. But yeah, the flow, we've talked about it. I talked about the Down with the Disease. The Drowned, Jackson was talking about too, just perfect ambient melt. It's so gorgeous. It's like a piece of heaven. And then this Roses Are Free. To me, this is like, they're covering this Ween song, which I don't even think Ween had played live at that point. Is that true? I think I read something about that they had never played this live, or they played it like 1 or 2 times. It was a brand new song. And this is like trying on like Cinderella's slipper and it fitting like perfect. Like they just make this their own in a way that I just think is so incredible. And to know what this song's going to be in April, in a few months, like it's just so incredible knowing what it's going to be for the band. And then, the Big Black Furry Creature from Mars into Ghost. And then they reprised the Down with Disease, which was the second song of this great jam. That kind of ability to circle back to where you started in a show, and then Johnny Be Good. It's just, to me, it's just such a piece of art. This show has incredible narrative arc, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was released when I went to listen to it. Because I think
it should be, right? Like, how is it not? Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that it wasn't, but I agree with what you said, Brian, about the audience. I think this was also remastered, I think.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound bad, not like The Next Night, which is bad.
The Next Night is one of the worst sounding
so bad
audience tapes. But
yeah,
I mean, this is jumping ahead to a section, but like I would love to see, similar to we saw the Hampton Winston-Salem, I'd love to see a Rochester Albany, upstate New York release, because I think these 3 shows, the Rochester 12/11 and the Albany shows, fit together really nicely. They showcase a slightly different sound. There's a lot of diversity in terms of big jams and set flow in 12/11 and 12/12, and then 12/13 is really just kind of like, oh, we got to play one more show. We're just gonna have a fucking party. Like it feels less like the major accomplishments of earlier in the tour, but like a band just knowing we just played a month of stunning shows. I think Rochester's a killer show. I think it's a pretty perfect 2-set show if you like you're combining great songs, set list selection, great jams in unexpected places, good flow where like there's ballads where, you know, maybe in your dreams you put in like another jam vehicle, but like let's be realistic, you need kind of a ballad every so often. I think that's a great pick.
Brian, can I just say one thing about the only thing I wanted to
Yeah.
just mention about this is the old drop into Ghost is just so much more of a powerful way to start the song. They should just go
Yes.
back to it. It's
Yes.
just, and that version is really, Mike's playing in that Rochester version is amazing. And then the way they like on a dime speed the tempo up to go back into that Down with Disease
Yeah,
riff
that's
is
so
it's pretty
cool.
incredible. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, the combo of the Siren intro in 98 and the just like drop in 97. I love Ghost. I don't think that they've gotten it right ever since 2.0. It's a little bit too of a
Mm.
rock. I would love to hear them just be like, let's just see what happens if, you know, one night we just try to play a 97 style Ghost. I think
I think I would
people
die. I think I
I
would
think people
die.
would lose their minds.
I would fucking die. I would fucking die. They could do that at MSG. That would be good.
That would be good. They could have done that on night 4 or day 4 Mondegreen, right?
It would have been
Something
great.
like that.
Yeah.
It would have been
Could have played
nice.
like Steep Swept Away. Like would have been a great thing. That's a great landing after a jam.
It's a good landing. Can I share a show?
Yes, please.
Land it.
Land it. I want to jump back a few weeks earlier in the tour to 1126 from Hartford. This show does similar stuff to Rochester in different ways. Both sets are over an hour long, which is kind of shocking. The first set's almost 90 minutes. The second set is almost 80 minutes. But you get this really beautiful, pretty stunning tweezer to open things up. Very hosey. It's not like the most mind-blowing jam that you're going to get, but it's just like very, very hosey fish. A really cool gumbo midway through that's got a very like Manteca like jam. My Soul, which I'm currently, because fish.net is down, I'm on fish.in, and one person has hearted the version of My Soul from this show, so I don't know who you are.
Takes all
but,
kinds. Takes all
yeah,
kinds.
all kinds here. One song didn't need a heart. You know, we don't need it everywhere. You get a jam charted McGrupp. You get a really, really good taste. And then in the second set, you get kind of this move that they've made where they open up with a non-traditional song in character 0. They jam said non-traditional song, 21-minute character 0. Then we get this whole segue of 2001 Cities, Yamar into Punch, and then it resolves with Caspian, close out with a Poor Heart Tweezer reprise. It's just like really well constructed stuff. Not the most mind-blowing jamming that we're ever going to hear, and not the most mind-blowing jamming in this tour, but like if you think back one fall prior, our number 25 tour, there weren't a lot of sets like this where you could just press play and the band was going to, without a note in front of them, move through different styles and move through all these different songs, and somehow they were all going to fit. Not a lot of these songs are going to be paired together in a second set in the future, but they all work, and that's a pretty stunning thing.
Yeah, this 2001 when the crowd starts clapping, it's like an episode of Soul Train or something. It is fucking cool. It's so good. This is the whole second set is basically on the jam chart too. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
It's pretty,
I mean, the
it's kind of an
tweezer.
underrated show.
Yeah, it is. I agree. The tweezer opener is just like vibes. It's vibes tour.
So
Like,
good.
They're just the funk, and it's just God.
It's great.
It's late November in the Northeast, and everyone's just there. Everyone's just there. It's awesome. So great. So
the
great.
taste too, like the full band is just like firing on all cylinders. It's just soars over. Like that's a great taste.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about all the shows
like,
I went to?
This
Brian?
is like, well, I just want to say like this.
Yes.
This is like, I'm just thinking about geographically, like they played out west, they play the Midwest, they go down to Hampton, they play this great run there, they play Winston-Salem, not really a fish stop, but they play Winston-Salem. And now we're in Hartford suddenly, and it's right before the holidays, and we're going to do Hartford, Worcester. Like these are the vibes.
They are. They are the vibes. Brian, the 12-2 and 12-3 shows, it is interesting that's they are kind of like a representative album when you take them together of the tour.
Yes, totally.
You know, I don't think they're the best shows of the tour, but I think they're like complementary in a way.
They're some of the
They're the
best.
best shows of the tour.
I think set 2 of 12-2 is the best set of the tour.
You think so?
I do. Yeah.
Wow.
It's perfection.
Wow.
Fun fact, I was on the road in November 2020 driving from Denver to Chicago when the election results were announced, and we had been waiting on Philadelphia. Philadelphia finally came in. So what did I do? I blasted 12-2 set 2 as a celebration. I will take Dog Face Boy in any second set sandwich. Like, I think that's a really, I mean, that's a top 15 Fish song for me. No context needed. Like, if you think I'm wrong, come at me. Like, that is a gorgeous lovelorn song. The Yamar is like raunchy and just like, it's crazy, and then it goes into weak pog, and it's unbelievable stuff. I don't know. This is one of my top. The Spectrum release is one of my top albums of the overall year. So how am I supposed to argue that this isn't one of the best? Like, this
Can't
is
argue
great
against
stuff.
yourself, so you might as well
No.
justify it. You know?
I think this set, like the flow in this Mike's groove is just insane. I'm so glad we have it on release because you really need to hear what's going on in this Mike's because there's so much going on underneath. It's so interesting. Like the groove is happening up here and then all this stuff is happening underneath it. They just sound so in control and it has that giant build and during Simple. And then the fact that like in Simple, you've got that Paige and Trey duet, which is so beautiful. So pretty. And then it kind of gallops into Dogface Boy, which is perfect. And then they're playing singing Dogface Boy over the Simple jam. It's so incredible. And then it has another like seamless, perfect segue into Yamar. And Fish just goes fucking off in Yamar. Like he is just, this set is incredible. I'm so glad this is released.
Boom, 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 boom. Oh my God. It's just like the simplest music. Why not? Let's like, why be overly
Fish
showy?
Gets minimal. It's like they do it so rarely. And so when they do it, it's so impactful. And that's why they're old. I think the really old ballads are so special because they're really simple and they're really powerful.
Brian, did you say this is the best, your favorite, or you think it's the best set of the tour or the best set 2 of the tour or both?
Both. I think this is the best set of the tour, personally speaking.
Wow. I don't know.
That's very interesting.
It's either this or 11-21 set 2 for me. But I'm just like an endless, or 12-6 set 2. I'm just like an endless contrarian. I have to, take things like 85 jams and drafts. So,
Yeah.
I think that Hampton set, the mics too from that is like, I don't know. That's pretty insane. Like
that
Mike's
show
groove is like insane. It's perfect. That's the most perfect set list ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
This first set is like one of the best first sets ever. Yeah, that double stack. Yeah, like the 11-22 double stack. They've got the like Mike's like Hydrogen Weak Pog, which is incredible. But then they play this beautiful hood. And then they play Train Song and then Billy Breathes. So they have this like double stack of like ballads. And then they go to Frankenstein and Isabella. It shouldn't work, but it works so perfectly. It's a setlist construction that's very different, but it's got to be one of the best first sets ever played.
Yes. Unquestionably.
Yeah. The whole show is just pretty perfect. I think those two shows I would take those two shows. I think the first show set 1 with the Emotional Rescue jam and to Split Open and Melt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of that set is not as good, but I mean those two shows are just outrageous. I think the best. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Emotional Rescue is a great reason why you would put debuts on the jam chart. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Because it's also a jam, though.
My point exactly.
Yeah, but it's a debut covered 18 minutes. Like, are you fucking kidding? And then
it's so good.
I mean, the whole thing is just, none of it makes any sense. This whole tour is just outrageous. Let's talk about the best first set of the tour, or one of the 5 best first sets of the tour, which is the Dayton set 1, which is perfect, start to finish. There's no there's no, first of all, if you think this show's overrated, I'm sorry that you didn't get to go for whatever reason. But this is start
So
to
good.
finish, this set there, it's bookended by two of the coolest segue moments of the tour and of this year, I think. But the AC/DC bag into Psycho Killer is,
Yes.
I think it's one of the most interesting segues in Fish history, because they come up with this out of what, the first time in 4 years they play this out of an AC/DC bag that just, first of all, the lights and there were balloons everywhere. This place was just, this is this fucking vibe central. Dayton, we're talking the Nutter Center. I'll never forget it. But the Jesus just left Chicago again, like great, perfect, patient. And then you get the, like, even the, so It's Ice Swept Away Steep Ice. That's usually a segment where I'm like, okay, whatever, let's just like move on. But it's, even that is just, it's perfect. It's just perfect. And then you end this set with this tube into Jam, into the Slave. Everyone knows it. And there's a theme there too, which is also great. I mean, like, I don't know. If you don't think that this tube through the end of the Slave is like the coolest thing that you've ever heard, then you got to just listen to it again, because there are, first of all, there's like the Let's Start That Jam Again thing, which is just
The best.
it's just the best. I mean, it's like there are moments like that. There's like the Island Tour Cavern has that similar thing where it's just like,
Yes.
fuck it. Like, but the way that it slowly transitions into Slave over the course of like 4 minutes is just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just, the set is perfect. It's a perfect set. And, I'm sorry you didn't get to go to the show if you don't like it.
A quote is for an audience of one. The sound out of Trey's guitar when, so let's go back to that jam. Fishman hits the snare, and then Trey hits that chord, and he does this thing that he does a bunch throughout Fall 97, where I think he's on like the wah, and he's like moving it, and he's strumming really quickly, and it doesn't sound like a guitar. It's a sound all unto Trey. And then as it's starting to move into Slave, whatever effect Mike has on his guitar, that just to me sounds like it's what I would imagine like columns of like nuclear waste sound like. It's just like it's like cylinders of nuclear power at the Springsteen plant. Like it's just it's so wild, it's so unnatural, but it's metallic, I can't get enough of it. It's some of my favorite stuff he's ever done. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think as you talk about this tour, you realize how overwhelming this tour is, because it just, by the time we get to this point in time, there's 5 shows left, and there's still 5 really, really great shows left. And we've already had a whole, so is this the best first set? Potentially. I think it's a really, really great first set. And I think, like, when you think about the context of AC/DC bag at this point in time, it had this huge jam version on 11/21, and it's going to have another huge jam version on 12/30, a jam I'm really, really fond of. And this one, you have to imagine, was going to be a show opening jam, because they don't go into Psycho Killer out of AC/DC bag. They go into a jam, and then they find their way almost immediately in Psycho Killer. So you have to imagine that the Psycho Killer is totally unplanned. They kind of remember the lyrics as well as like you remember them at a party when you're like, yeah, let's play Psycho Killer, and like there's people playing around you. It adds to the vibe. It's kind of like because sure, we could use another 15-20 minute AC/DC bag that opens the show. That'd be awesome. But I think what they did here is better.
Yeah. I think this first set is like a perfect show. And the second set is so dreamy, but it almost feels like a bonus, because it doesn't even matter. Like, the first set was so good that when they come out and, they play this like Boogie On that just goes so hard in 97 style, a gorgeous Reba, really amazing Coyote and Possum. It's a killer set, but it just feels like a bonus, because the first set is like absolutely perfection. It's hard to do that too. I think it's hard. And they do that again and again. They play these like fucking amazing first sets, and then they come on and play a great second set too. It's like they never seem to like run out of ideas or juice or gas or whatever. They're just always like in the zone. It's wild. But yeah, this first set.
This
I mean-
Beyond in the second set was bust out after 989 shows.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that
Like-
this was the biggest bust out ever at the time.
And then they're going to
It's
do it again later in
overshadowed.
the year with Sally. Like they're finding these songs that they're going way back and finding stuff that's just so good for this and genius stuff.
Yeah. I will say, I know Brian knows this story, but I drove from Columbus from Dayton back to Columbus after this show on a Sunday night. It was like a 2-hour drive. I got back to my freshman year dorm room at 2 a.m. I parked my car, went to sleep at 2 a.m. I got up at 8 to take my first ever college exam, which I got an A on. And I was like,
Yes.
college is fucking awesome.
You're like, I can do anything. I'm on
This
top
is
of the
the
world.
best. This is the absolute best. And the next day after that, the day after my exam, we drove to State College in
Oh my God.
snowy back roads in my friend's Defender 90, which had no back seat. So the three of us, two of us who were switching, whoever got the very back, we were just kind of like sitting in the back of a truck. We walked in during the
That's
Mike's
amazing.
opener, very picturesque snowy night in a college town. It was that show is we don't have to talk about it, but Fishman screaming during Julius is a great sign of like how they were feeling at that point in the tour.
Yes.
I don't know, that show gets, I don't think really a lot of attention, but there's some really good moments in that show.
Yeah, I think that show it just gets overshadowed by what happened before that weekend prior and what's going to happen in the final weekend of the tour. But I think that Simple is definitely worth listening to.
Simple is
I think
amazing.
it's a solid hood to close out the second set. It's not like a super flowy second set, which, like saying it out loud, like Julius, Simple, Timber, Contact, Axilla, Hood, that probably could work in a different context, but that doesn't totally work here as it would in other settings.
Yeah,
Yep.
but this Simple is awesome though. That it has that feel of like just a super gradual build. It's really sophisticated, the improv though, and it takes a while to like kind of get lit up, but then it kind of swells, and then they have that super weird segue where they basically start to play Bowie, but then they go into Timber. It's like so weird, but they do play like a cool psychedelic Timber. Like I'm not really into Timber, but it's a cool version of it.
It definitely is like Bowie for a really long time until they decided
Like a
to stop.
really long time. Like yeah.
I think that probably elevates the show if they were to have done Bowie versus Timber, because while Timber had jam moments, the next show I want to mention has a great Timber jam, but like Bowie has some, like the 12-3 Bowie is one of the best jams of the overall tour. We haven't even talked about it. It's 26 minutes unfinished, total bliss zone going into Possum. I think if you add that Simple and then a huge Bowie after that, a lot of people are going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Fair. All right, what else you guys got?
Brian, what did you have?
I'll just go quick here, and I'll combine segments here because this is another release I want to do. 11/28, night one of Worcester. I think similar to what Meg was saying about 12/11, this is kind of the perfect fall 97 show. You've got Curtain, huge Big Yem in set one, Big Maze, 10-minute Black Eyed Katie. Set two, though, this is another one of those fluid sets. Timber, Limb by Limb, Slave, Ghost, Johnny Be Good. The encore, you can get out of Miss Traffic. But I think that there should be a Worcester box set release. I think there's enough evidence here that it should be heard. The gym being so massive that we talked about, the 11:30 Wolfman's, I think we all think deserves a review from fans. But I think that this show specifically, it's in soundboard quality, so we already have a good quality of it, but there is something that does happen when a good show is released officially and it gets that kind of parade online. And if you have live fish, it's easy to access. Maybe they officially release it, you get a nice CD box set of it. But I think that this 11/26 and the last weekend should complement this tour nicely with official releases.
Yeah, I love that choice. That Ghost is a perfect, like, tight space funk and then dropping into silence and playing with dynamics. It's a really great trajectory of that jam. And the yem is just like funk groove heaven. Like just, I'll take that shit any day. I'm into all the other stuff too, but just place me into that funk. Like it's so good. I also think my choice for the live Fish release was doing that the last 3 shows too. That was kind of what I was thinking too. But this is cool too. I hadn't thought about that. I like the Worcester box set idea.
The second set of that 11/28 show is those 4 songs you get. It's like so stacked, but everything's a little bit different. Like the timbre is like fast shredding. The limb by limb is like slightly lighter, but not less intense. And then you get this beautiful slave and then like a really serious groove with Ghost. It's a really amazing, it's an amazing combination.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, it's like perfect, right? It's like every piece that you'd want.
Yeah. What do you got, Megan?
I mean, I think that we've talked about, we've talked a lot about the shows that I wanted to talk about. I think the one, we haven't talked fully about the Denver show, but we've talked about a lot of the other shows that I wanted to talk about. I do think that they've released a lot of these excellent shows, but I think talking a little bit more about the Denver show, just because it is, to me, this is like, you just buckle up and you just let them take you on like a perfect ride. There's just nothing else you need to do, but just like buckle up and go on this ride of this show with this like 18-minute tweezer to open up, just funk heaven. You've got the Ghost, which we talked a lot about, the Fire, which just like absolutely shreds. And then the set 2 is really interesting. Down with Disease, Olivia's Pool, Johnny Be Good, into the Denver Jam, which Brian talked about earlier. And then Jesus Just Left Chicago, into Circus. And then the encore has that like super funky yam, which I think .NET calls it overrated, but I think it's great. There's great textures. It gets really quiet. It's nice.
So, okay. What?
The .NET shade that we do.
I know.
I love it. We love you guys out there. We love you so much.
What's your favorite show of the tour, guys? That was a question from a list from a viewer.
Favorite show?
Earlier, yeah. Here we go. Luke Meyer. It's hard.
I think it's Rochester for me.
Wow.
I think I'd go with Hampton Night 1.
Hampton Night 1.
How about you?
I mean, it's impossible to answer. There's too many.
What was your favorite show of the shows that you saw?
Too many children.
Did you pick one?
I mean, Dayton was the most memorable show. It's probably the most memorable show I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. I think I remember I remember everything, and I don't always remember everything at shows, regardless of what Megan makes me take. Just kidding. That would never happen. I mean, I think my favorite show is probably the Palace. I mean, I think like with the Golgi Antelope opener, and then you like the gin and the foam. There's a maze in there that's great, but the second set is just like you didn't even really need the Piper toward the end of the set. That but this raging space into like a mellow, place that it goes into Sleeping Monkey and then Tweezer Reprise. That was just a perfect show. Perfect show. So I guess
it really is.
I guess that's it for me. But it's so hard. They're all so good. I mean, there's like two shows probably that I wouldn't listen to on a regular basis from this whole tour.
Yeah, that's kind of how it shakes out. I feel like there's so many.
Well, it's one of those like this is the tour I've listened to the most, both in terms of like quantity of just random jams, but also like listening projects. Like there have been multiple times where I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll spend the next month just listening to a Fall 97 show each day on its anniversary. Why not?
Yeah.
And even I'm going to take heat for this, but I would not say that about all of next week's tour, which is a controversial take on next week's tour, and a potential reason why the fans were right and we were wrong, even though I think we were right, for reasons we will share next week. But this is the tour where like you can just when you start listening to it, you start anticipating things and you start saying, oh wait, but this sound is going to come back in this jam 3 shows later, and oh wait, they're going to start to sound like this, and then that's going to be reflected. There's so much to take in here.
And there's so many moments that you like that are just so iconic, like
Mhm.
banter or just jams or vibes or segues or things that just, yeah, they're kind of unforgettable because they're so specific to this time, and it's just mastery. This is just, yeah, top of their game. I mean, we're top 2 tour, like this is,
Yeah.
it doesn't get much better than this. And it's debatable if it does get better. We'll see next week.
We're gonna find out. Next
Yeah.
week is the number one ranked tour of all time, according to HF Pod, according to Team HF Pod. It was ranked number 2 by fans, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
We swapped them.
It's
Okay.
it's the tour
Thank
that
you.
I've seen a lot. I saw a lot of these shows, but I saw the beginning part of the tour, which
Great.
is a little sad.
Very different.
Yeah, we're talking about fall 95, and it's fucking awesome. It was still amazing. And the memories of this tour actually are so embedded in me because I was a freshman in college. So RJ, your time and your memories of fall 97 are very much aligned with my time and memories of fall 95, because there's just something about being 18, being out on your own for the first time and going and seeing Fish whenever you want. There's something really magical about that. So that's what this tour is for me. So I'm excited.
I have no memories of it because I was still in diapers.
And there's no chip on your shoulder about that. 0.
I want to say thank you to everyone who has listened to this series. We'll say more great things about this series later, but thank you guys for hanging here with us. We're going to be back. We're going to go live next Wednesday, if you can believe it. We have less than a week to get our thoughts together for fall 95, which was 600 shows. So we got to start now.
I'll be starting tonight.
I think that's it, guys.
I think that's it.
Fun.
That's it.
That was good.
We did it.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for everybody in the chat, too. Good to see you all. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everybody.